What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Joel Friday TV. I am Joel Friday. Welcome to the show. A few announcements before we get started. Hit that like button, smack it, later smack down the like, subscribe, and share button. Tell your peoples about the show so we get the subscribers up and a message out. Do it now. Help a brother out. As you guys know, we are live Monday through Thursday at 11 a.m. On YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Punchy.tv at any point during the show. You can call in at 888-775-3773, 888-775-3773, and we can get into whatever you want to get into, y'all. We could talk. We could talk. And if for whatever reason you can't call in, but you still have a question or comment, or you just want to support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JoelFridayTV or go directly to the YouTube live chat. Hit the super chat button there. Send your question or comments in. I'll read them live on air. That's how it goes, and I'll get to it. Amazing stuff. What's today? Today's Wednesday. What does that mean? Relationships Wednesday. Listen, you guys know you love it. You know you love it. The undercover beta males. Undercover alpha males. You know you love it. And you're here for it. And I appreciate it. It's all right. It's cool to want to know a thing or two about what women are into, what men are into. The natural state of women, the natural state of men. How to properly go about finding the right spouse. How to, meet the right person. These are things of value. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing beta about them. All right? Good to know these things. Jesus knew them. We should be knowledgeable on all these things. We don't got to get carried away, but it's okay to know a thing or two. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Also, few things I want to get to. Couple things I want to get to. First, we're going to start off with a little bit of news. Just something light. And then listen, we're gonna do a breakdown on what men and women offer, right? I realized something and I really want to share with you guys and see what you guys think, get a feel, and we talk about it, right? Maybe take some calls on it. If you guys want to talk about it, get some super chats, all that good stuff. So we'll get to it. First things first, though, I want to make a little comment, just some culture news. Some of you guys may know who ASAP Rocky is, okay? You guys know ASAP Rocky? ASAP Rocky is a rapper, hip hop artist. I can't tell you what songs he's known for off the top of my head right now, but he is that guy. He's married to Rihanna. They have 2 kids and a third one on the way. And he, I guess, had mentioned at some point how he views raising his children. And I have just a little something light here I want to show you guys. Boom, this here. ASAP says he refuses to hire a babysitter for his kids. He says he didn't wait till 35 years to have children just to hire someone else to look after them. Okay, couple things I want to say here. First off, I want to encourage that people who are maybe in their 30s or think they're running out of time. This is mainly like a lady's mind frames. They thinking they're running out of time. I want you to know that that's not true. Okay? Time is whatever. All right? It's not true. They're having children. Mind you, Rihanna is maybe, I think, 38. Something like that. She's up there and she's on her 3rd child. It is possible. I'm not saying some people don't have complications as they get older. Of course, life is life, but I'm just saying that, like, you don't want to rush to have a baby because you think your time is ticking, type of thing. My mom had my little brother at 38. I've heard stories of 50, 60-year-old ladies having all this stuff, and people will say, well, it's not ideal to have children when you're old. Then when they grow up, you'll be old. I mean, that necessarily doesn't have to mean anything unless you want it to mean something. Having old parents doesn't have to be a bad thing. You know what I mean? Life is just life. You got to let life, and God will do his thing when he wants to do his thing. So that's the first thing. Second thing, number 2 is, I don't know so much about Rihanna and Rocky's relationship and what they're into and, whatever. I just wish them well with it. And he had a boy first. Not that really matters, but it's just like a running joke here at Bond. Like, real men have boys first type of thing. But it's not that deep. It's not a shot at men who don't have boys first. But he has a son, a daughter, and I believe another kid on the way. But it's kind of nice when you hear people out in the world, like whether it be, fame, celebrity status, Hollywood, when they say stuff like the truth, because a lot of these, Hollywood movie stars or Hollywood artists and stuff like that, people in general are really busy people. They don't tend to watch their children. They hire nannies, babysitters, and stuff like that. And they usually say it's because of their schedule and stuff. But in all reality, it's nice when you see somebody, realize that they should be involved in their children's lives, not a nanny. And they should be the one mostly raising the children, right? It's just common sense. It just makes the most sense. Nothing wrong with having a nanny here and there, but you want to be the one raising your children, right? That's your kids. They want their parents. They don't want strangers. Strangers can be nice from a distance, here and there. have a little a uncle, an aunt, or a good friend, whatever. That's fine here and there. But there's nothing like good old mom and dad. You know? So that's cool when I seen that. But I'm hoping that it's not like him being a stay-at-home dad type of thing. But they're artists, right? Artists don't really have schedules like that to where they work a 9 to 5, one goes out to work, one. It's kind of like, it's like more free flowing. So however they work it out, I wish them well. I wish them well. So that's that. That's all I really had to say much about that. Anyway, to that real stuff, to the real, to that good stuff. I think Cake forgot to, what do you call it? Schedule me over. Yeah, he did. I'm looking at my viewership like, what the? But that's okay, because that just tells me one thing. It tells me that people are automatically, they watch me because I switch over, not because they're genuinely interested in the show. If they're genuinely interested in the show, then they would leave Hakes and be like, oh, I gotta watch Joel, and they would go to mine. So the ones that are in the chat and the ones that are watching and viewing right now, it's because you guys genuinely are interested into the show for the most part. And I appreciate it. So we'll take those. And I appreciate, not we'll take, but I'm grateful for y'all. All right, anyways, let's get to it. What do men and women have to offer? Okay. I got a super chat from Mr. Eric Harlan. Always has some pretty interesting things to say. He said a few things that kind of sparked my topics today that I kind of want to play off of and add to as well. He made some good points that I want to use for today's show and add to him as well. So shout out Eric Harlan. I appreciate it. This is what I want to say. So first off, I want to break down the difference. So what women offer and what men offer are two different things. Okay, so what women offer is beauty, purity, and fertility. This is what Eric had mentioned. And it's so true, right? Beauty, purity, and fertility. And this is what they naturally offer, right? As a lady, right? This is what is most attractive about a lady, which is what draws a man unto her, is her beauty, her purity, and her fertility. Okay? This is her job as a lady out the womb is to preserve that, right? Their job is to preserve that. Their job is to keep that intact, right? And as they do that, this is like the mating call for men, right? This is what men love the most at its core, right? This is what men look for at the most. And I'm not talking about the mental, when men, how men think mentally. I'm talking about naturally, even if a guy is caught up in his mess, right? Player to player. At the core, a man wants a lady that beauty, purity, and fertility. Those are three things that women offer that men desire. Her job is to preserve that. What men offer is men are mentally, spiritually, and physically secure, right? This is what men offer. Men should be mentally, spiritually, and physically secure, okay? And this is how men attract women to him. And I'm not saying women, right? But that's the reality, right? Women are just drawn to that energy, that nature. So it's not just gonna be one woman that's attracted to that. No, women are attracted to that in general, period. Right? If a man is secure in those ways, and this is how he attracts a good wife. But this is not what men are to preserve. This is what men have to become, right? So it's a little different. Men have to become those things while women already have those things and they're just called to preserve it. Am I making sense? Right? And I've talked about this stuff in different kind of ways, but I just love the way that Eric had put it together, you know, and that's what I'm explaining here. But what I realized is that the rules have changed. I mean, the rules never change, but they have changed in society, right? That's the way that it's designed, but the rules in society have changed, right? But the design hasn't, okay? And what I realized is that though that's the case, though that's the rules, human beings, men and women, are just lost, right? You know, just lost and trying to find their way back to those rules, right? But because we don't know the truth, right? Because we don't truly know what these things are, right? We don't really know what these things mean: beauty, purity, fertility, mentally, spiritually, and financially, and physically strong. We don't really know what that actually means, right? We just have an idea. What happens is we recreate the rules, right? We change the definition because we're trying to make sense of what it is, right? And Eric had mentioned something. Eric's like co-hosting the show today. And I want to share what you guys had said. This is from a little super chat. Buy me a coffee. He mentions how beauty, purity, and fertility have been distorted, okay? And he says when it comes to beauty, how beauty has been distorted is when things such as makeup, hair color, wigs, nails, clothes, bags, jewelry, teeth, tanning, photo filters, cosmetic surgeries, and a dishonesty about age and weight. That's what Eric said, right? And that's when it comes to beauty. And when it comes to purity is when she's not honest about where she's been, what she's done, who she knows, what she likes, what she wants. She plays games, plays hard to get, acts like a lady, lies about her body count, right? That's when it comes to purity. And when it comes to fertility, he says when she's not honest about prioritizing starting a family, she has less children, she's on birth control, she has abortion, she never mentions she can't have or doesn't want children, okay? And I thought that he was making some good points there, right? And it's not that it's just this intentional thing that, you know, women are just trying to do. It's just that these are the things that have been adopted by the world that replace things such as beauty, purity, and fertility. So then now those get worn as an identity, right? And they become substitutes, right? For the purest form of it, right? They become substitutes. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to, adding to what he said, I'm not saying that it's wrong to do these things in moderation, right? But it's important to note that these don't define, right? These things don't define real beauty, real purity, and real fertility, right? And men also do it as well. Men have a false version. Men have a imitated version of what they're trying to, you know, be as far as mentally, spiritually, and physically stable. They have their altered version. What is it for men? Men have, when it comes to mental, and this is from me, Eric Harlan didn't write this. So if you guys disagree, you guys can blame me, not Eric, on this part. When it comes to mental, men think that mentally secure means having this intellectual knowledge, right? Reading a lot of books, having this big vocabulary, and knowing history, knowing politics, knowing this, knowing that, just knowing stuff, right? Men consider that as smart, right? This intellectual knowledge. Those things aren't wrong either. It's good to know things. It's good to, be knowledgeable about certain things, especially when you're out in the world conducting yourself in the public eye. It's good to know a few things, but that doesn't make you smart. Right? It makes you intellectually smart, but it doesn't make you stable mentally, right? And secondly, spiritually, when guys think spiritually, typically today guys think it means just going to church, listening to a few church podcasts, reading the Bible, right? Listening to worship music, right? Doing stuff like that. Reading a couple other spiritual books, spiritual guides, having a therapist. These things you can do all those things, and that still doesn't mean that you're spiritually stable, right? Spiritually secure. And then men, lastly, will also, when it comes to physical stability, men will work 18 hours a day, go to gym twice a week, make lots of money, have lots nice things, live a lavish life, all these different things, right? And that still doesn't make you a man. So I think that men and women aren't off in them trying to portray the natural design that we offer to the world, right? Those things that we cover up, right? Those things are true. Mentally, spiritually, physically strong as a man, beauty, purity, and fertility as a woman. Those things everyone knows is what we offer to each other. We just don't know what it really means. So we get lost in a sauce and we try to change it up, and we're just trying to figure out what works, what's attracting the women, what's attracting a man, and we do that. But sometimes we forget to go to the heart of the issue to really understand what this stuff means. So we settle for the substitutions, right? We settle for the substitutions. And all the while, peace is not truly found. You know what I mean? And I want to get into what I believe the true understanding of these things look like, right? And this is just my opinion, right? Joel, 33, he's still young, right? He's still learning. But this is just what I believe to be true. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But I say that to say as well that a lot of the time when we're going about life and we see, like, we'll speak on ladies, especially today, behaving in this way, right? Really just hiding behind, a lot of these different things, like wearing this mask, right? And where they're playing a game and like trying to have multiple different guys that she's dating at once, but being secretive about it, or trying to look beautiful to attract the man, right? Whether it be getting these enhancements, right? Or changing their appearance and looking beautiful in public and all these different things, right? That ladies are doing. A lot of the times it's perceived as them like being evil behavior, right? Or doing evil things, or having a hidden agenda and trying to play a trick on men and try to get just kind of stuff. Mind you, anger does operate that way. Hate does operate that way, right? I'm not denying that. But I think it's less about them being evil and more about them being broken, lost, okay? Because when you shift it from evil to lost or evil to broken, then you can approach it differently. You know what I mean? Because I think oftentimes the narrative is that they're just evil, right? And I'm not denying that, but I think it's less about evil and more about brokenness, right? Lost. A lot of people are evil because they're lost, right? We're designed to operate in the light, right? With God. We're designed that way. But on the way, we got lost, right? Our parents got lost, parents got lost, right? And we all over the place. And in our brokenness is when we pick up the thrills and the escapes and the desires and the fantasies. Why? Because we're in survival mode. These things make us feel good. These things get us through the day, right? And even the intentionally evil people who worship the devil, right? Working with the man, the devil himself, those who praise and worship, and it's still being done out of a brokenness, out of a blindness, right? Because it makes zero sense for anybody to truly see God. I'm talking about truly experience peace and not want it. I'm meaning truly see peace and not prefer it, right? Because peace surpasses any. I mean, it says in the Bible somewhere. Derek can tell me. Peace surpasses everything else, something like that. So I think it's more so about brokenness and being lost than anything else. And once we come back to that, once we understand what that is, once we first recognize that, when we stop identifying with these things, because one thing that we can't control is what we choose to identify with, right? We don't have to identify with these things. We don't have to accept them as normal, right? We can still do them, right? We can still do these things, but we can still be honest about them, right? We can still have our thrills, right? If you want them, have your thrills. But I encourage just to be honest about the thrills. Just be real about it. I'm thrilling, I'm thrilling, right? You're not a bad person if you admit that you're doing what you ought not to do, right? You're not a bad person, and God don't hate you, right? God actually is more happy about your honesty of what you're doing opposed to your denial about what you're doing. So how do we find these things? And then I'm gonna be off this. I'm gonna get some super chats and maybe some calls. 888-775-3773. 888-775-3773. And we'll get to it. Derek says, be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which is present in all understanding, shall keep your heart and minds through Jesus Christ. Through Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:6-7. And the peace of God, which pass all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. That's kind of close to what I was saying, but I don't think that quite hits on what I meant. But I appreciate that, Derek, for looking that up. That's Philippians 4:6-7. So this is how I believe that the true nature of men and women looks like, in my opinion, right? Beauty, purity, and fertility for women, right? Shout out Eric. Joel, stop capping. You ain't taking no calls. When it comes to beauty, right? I think beauty is I honestly think beauty is less about a physical betrayal, portrayal of it, opposed to more of the heart. So I think when it comes to beauty for a lady, it's more about honesty, right? Innocence of heart, right? How does a woman keep her beauty is that she stays innocent in heart, honest in heart, right? It's one of the hardest things for ladies to do today is to be honest about their behavior. Why? Because women tend to be more judgmental. So it's hard to be honest because if you're honest, then you may feel worse about yourself, right? So it's hard to be honest. And I understand that. But honesty of heart, honesty is what sets you free, right? It doesn't condemn you for your behavior. It sets you free because you're admitting it. You're repenting, right? You're admitting the behavior, right? Honesty of heart, innocence of heart, right? And working on yourself and paying attention to yourself and following God. That's how women keep beauty, in my opinion. That's how they truly become beauty from the inside out. And naturally beauty is because it's reflected of the heart, right? And they don't need, honestly, they don't need any procedures, right? And they know they don't need procedures because they already know they're naturally beauty from within. And they're secure with how they look and how they're portrayed by the world because they're beautiful within. There's not one ugly person in the world who is secure about themselves. Not one. Not one. Unless they've been like deformed or like beat up or like, you know what I mean? Because beauty starts within. So purity, when it comes to purity, women that are sexually unavailable. The women that are sexually unavailable, guys know. Guys know them. Guys can recognize them. And they also play less games, right? Because they're sexually unavailable. And even if you've been sexually available due to like trauma, caught up, brainwashing, you can still become sexually unavailable and turn that kind of stuff around, right? Get your purity back. It's possible. Your purity can return, but you got to be sexually unavailable because it's not natural for ladies to be sexually available anyway. That's not natural because women aren't driven sexually oftentimes. They're not driven sexually. They're more driven emotionally, right? And sex can be like a byproduct of that emotion, those emotions, but they're not driven sexually. So sexually unavailable, fertility, healthy, and a willingness to procreate, right? Their willingness to have babies, but the womb is in a good place. Because you could be all jacked up. You know, people that just be like doing whatever they want with their bodies, smoking, drugs, right? And they're not, you know, their bodies are not healthy. You want to have a healthy body for the baby to live in, and you also want to be willing to procreate. So I think those are the things for women. And when it comes to men, and when it comes to men, and guys talk about women being born virgins. Listen, I understand that, and that's beautiful. You find a woman that's a virgin. They do exist. Women who are virgins still do exist. And because maybe they had good fathers or maybe God just protected them from that. That's very possible. Women virgins do exist. So don't lose hope. But I also wouldn't bank on that either because, society is what society is. And it's more about the heart, right? People could turn, people can change their ways, people can be different, people can overcome. So it's more about the heart. That's why Jesus returned, so we can be born again of the heart, not of the actions. So anyway, when it comes to men, what men should be and how men can actually be mentally, spiritually, and physically secure is they have a sound mind. When it comes to mental, they gotta have a sound mind. Spiritually, they have to be able to hear from God, know themselves. When I tell you knowing this self is a key point, is really key, right? Because then you're more grounded. It doesn't mean you know everything about yourself. It doesn't mean you know everything about what you're gonna do next. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you don't still maybe get caught up here and there, right? But what it does is that you no longer are sitting up condemning yourself because you know your heart. You know the truth about yourself. You know your intention. And it's like a glimpse into your true nature. And when you have that, you're more grounded in how you behave with wife and children and society. And if you get caught up, you can find your way back to yourself because you know yourself, right? When you don't know yourself, you don't know where to go. You're like, is this myself? Is this me? Is that me? Is this me? But when you know you can find yourself back to you when you drift off a little bit. So men got to be spiritually secure by knowing themselves and knowing God, knowing how to hear from God, knowing how to recognize God's voice. Listen, you got to. And physically is obviously protecting and providing for your family, right? Protecting and providing. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Can you protect the family? Right? That's a good question. That's a big question. Can you protect the family? And can you provide for the family? Right? If all hell breaks loose and only one person can work, can you carry the ball? And can you carry the weight? Because it's easier to do when there's two family incomes, mother and father, right, in the home. Both are working. And let's just say you guys have an arrangement where that works. And that's fine. But if all hell breaks loose and you got to work and you have to be able to pick up the bills and find a way to do it, can you? Can you do it? That's what a provider is. If you lose it all, can you figure out how to gain it back? Right? And could you do it by yourself? That's what provider means. All right, that's it. So shout out Eric. Shout out Eric. Let me get to a call here. Let me go to, and then I'll get to your super chats. Let me go to Justin out of California. Justin, welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Joa.
No problem, Justin.
All right. I just wanted to read a scripture, the scripture that preceded the one that you had just read from one of the comments.
Yep.
It's from chapter 4 in Philippians. It says, finally, brethren, verse 8. So you left off on 7. So 7, you said, and the peace of God which passeth all understanding shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. And then he says, finally, in verse 8, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things, in verse 9 it says, which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me do, and the peace of God shall be with you.
So describe, break that down to us.
Okay. I believe that when we read these words that are in the Bible, the letter that went to the church in Philippi, that they had probably been, thinking a lot of things that they ought not to think about. And so it all starts within our thoughts, and that's how we can be able to know God, and to know God is to know peace. And that's where it begins, it's in our thoughts. There's other scriptures that talk about
what is in
pure,
our thoughts?
All things are pure. So like it's our eyes, it's what we see, it's our ears, it's what we hear, and then it leads to the thoughts to touching something that's pure, and then to being around your family and your community and the ones that you love, and those pure things that come from God. You're more and more likely to experience that peace that people fail to have in their life, because their thoughts are distracted, divided with thoughts that are not noble, pure, lovely. Things that we ought to think about that will lead us into a path of peace.
Oh, I see. Why do you think that we don't think on those things?
Well, the prince of this air, the devil, he fell, and he's a bright light, so it's very distracting. Yeah. But the peace, without the glitz and the lights and the stuff of this world, the stuff that Jesus was tempted 40 days in the desert by the devil from, he combated with the words of God. So that's where his peace kept him, and he was not at fault with sinning, because he kept himself close to God and the scriptures and filling his mind and his thoughts constantly of God's word, and he being the very word of God. Every time the devil tried to combat his mind, and tempt him with the lights, the glimmer, the glam, whatever you want to call that, of this world, the money, the power, he could easily deny it, and his peace could return to him.
Yeah, the noise of the devil, right? The thrills and the fantasies and the feelings is so loud and so like maybe temporary satisfying that it's very easy just to go with those to get some quick some quick feel good. What do you think the solution is for people to deny that and choose peace, right? Because if there was an option right in front of them, like peace over thrills, and they can just choose one, and every time they choose one, they'll feel exactly what it says that it brings, right? Either peace or thrills. Then people would just choose peace any kind of day. But what do you think that people need to do in order to experience that peace, even though it's not as easily accessible as like the thrills is?
I mean, I've been rooted with the word, so I know that the devil is a thief, and so he comes to steal our peace. He comes to steal the thoughts that we keep inside of our minds, and that keeps us at peace. And I know that the way to wage a war against him is to resist him in every way. And so the resisting of one without grasping another is failure. You have to, if you're going to resist something, you have to grab onto something else.
Do you
you're
think
like on a roller coaster ride, what I mean? You got to grab on.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point. And do you think that if we resist, because when you try to resist something, right? Say you feel something and it feels good, and you try to resist it, then you feel bad for having to resist it, right? You don't feel good, if painful a little bit. The ego wants it, but you're denying it. Do you think that that's the solution for people to eventually start to feel peace, is that you have to just go through that pain of denying the thrill?
Yeah, Jesus said you have to deny yourself and carry your cross daily. So it's something to meditate on, the words, and to keep yourself close to God. If you draw near to God, God definitely will draw near to you. The one true God I'm talking about, which is Yeshua, Yahweh, the one true God. There's many false, idols out there that don't bring peace, of materialism or of ego or of pretty much pride, which is what the devil wants all of us to be, like him, made in his image. His image that we know of is full of pride. He may have been, some archangel and great, but even he could fall. And so that's where we should remember that
Yeah.
The peace that keeps us up, and to stay away from the pride that helps us stay, keep away from pride, so that we can, by having God's peace, so we don't fall like he fell.
Yeah. And how do we stay away from pride, though? How do we, if you can think of, how do we stay away from pride? How do we recognize that we're caught up, and how do we get back to being humble and so forth?
Sober-minded. Being sober-minded reminds us who we are. Holding on to, not over-inflating who we think we are. And, yeah.
And sober-minded, what do you exactly mean by that?
So there are things that can lead us astray, and when we're tainted or intoxicated with the world's lust and ideals that it purports, and the hopes that we're trying to gain out of some selfish gain. Like Jesus said, "Who of you can add an hour to your life by worrying? Look at the lilies in the field. Look at the birds of the air. They don't labor or spin or toil or anything, and yet their heavenly Father takes care of them. Oh, you of little faith."
Yeah.
So, there's choices. There's choices, and we should just remember that if God cares so much about even the littlest things of this earth, so He will also take care of us. And our pride is there to remind us of our need for the redemption that Jesus gave us by dying on the cross and rising again from the dead.
Fair enough, Justin. I appreciate it. Thanks for the context, and thanks for the input.
Yeah, I thought the brethren should hear that. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
All right, man. You too. Nice. Let me get to some super chats here. Eric Harlan on Buy Me a Coffee right now. Well, these are from the other day, and I wanted to read these. But first, let me go to YouTube. Liesel, generous donation from Liesel on YouTube, says, "Best show this side of heaven." I appreciate that, Liesel. Thank you. And appreciate the support. Always. Amazing stuff. Shout out, Liesel. I don't know if I read this yesterday, but Kel said, "Why send parents to jail if they're all doing their best?" In my opinion, 99% of them are not doing their best, and after about 13, you are fully responsible. I don't know, Kel. I don't think that doing your best is, you can do your best, but there's also like doing your best, and there's also laziness, there's also selfishness, there's also all these things that play a part. So I don't know if parents are all doing their best. I genuinely think that some parents just threw up their hands, Excuse me. So I don't know. I think there just need to be a little some fire lit. But hey, it's just an opinion. Something to think about. I think it's not always fair either that kids weren't asked to be in this life, and yet they're brought into this world without their permission, right? They're brought into this world and they're not given any of the proper tools, right? They're not given a fair hand at life, meaning that they're not taught properly. So they're going to have jacked up minds. They're going to be angry. They're going to be caught up because their only examples are that. So it's almost kind of not fair to not put parents responsible or to blame to some degree. That's all I'm saying. Some degree. Especially when they're underage. Adolescents. Anyway, Eric Harlan, thank you, Kale. I appreciate it. Eric Harlan with a few donuts says, "Women have no incentive to be good people." He's referring to the episode with Pearl. Shout out Pearl Davis. We had her on the Punchy TV. Episode's doing really well. Make sure you guys check that out because it was entertaining. It was a fun show. And we actually went longer than we normally do because we just were having so much fun. So go check out Pearl on Punchy TV, latest episode, episode 39. Eric responds to that and says, women have no incentive to be good people, says Pearl. Eric says, true. Women today have nothing holding them accountable for their behavior. Ooh. Women today have nothing holding them accountable for their behavior. That's actually a good point. It's actually a good point. And Pearl mentions in the episode that women don't get told no enough. And because they don't get told no enough, they're not incentivized to work on themselves, right? They're not forced to work on themselves. They just become spoiled, right? They get what they want, and then their attitudes get out of control because there's no pushback. And I think human beings need a little pushback sometimes. We need a little spiritual buffering, you know? So I agree with you, Eric. Let me see. Eric says, you asked Pearl about women's femininity. Masculinity is real. Femininity is an act. Oh. Men are told to be a man. Women are told to act like a lady. Femininity is a performance. Femininity doesn't exist. All right? Femininity is based in purity, honesty, and moral character. This doesn't describe any woman I know. Before chat go crazy, let me break down what I believe he means. He's not saying femininity in itself doesn't exist, right? He's just saying as of today, it's hard to find a lady that is genuinely feminine because he says femininity is based in purity, honesty, and moral character. And he says this doesn't describe any woman that he knows, right? But it doesn't mean that femininity in itself is not real. It is very real, okay? So I had to bring context to Eric Harlan's post. You can't be saying femininity doesn't exist, Eric. You're going to drive the lady crazies. I mean, the lady's crazy. But I agree with the point, though. I agree with the point. Eric says, women today don't realize that the most meaningful thing you can do in life is create healthy human beings. They put their efforts into a meaningless career to inflate their ego and in the process neglect what meant the most. Not everybody's going to have a baby. Not all women are going to have children. So I think that it's okay for women to work. I don't think that they should get too carried away and get into these leadership roles. If they want to do that, that's your prerogative. To each his own. You want to do that, live your life and just live, right? And I ain't saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying is that like women who want children, it's a different ball game. You want children and you want a family, then you got to understand what that means. And you better take care of that child or else your baby is going to grow up Ted Bundy. Okay? And if you're lucky, he might not. But listen, you want to take care of your children. And one of the worst things, and I still can't understand why any lady would think that being at home with children is slavery or being at home with children is less than or a weak thing. I do not understand that. I do not. I think that especially when the child is little, that is one of the most important things a lady can do is be a mother to her children as they're young. They need you, and it's important. And without that there does cause complications. A dad ain't meant to be a single dad. There's a reason why you need a mother and a father there, because you guys both offer something different and the parent and the children need both. A woman raising her children is just as important as a man leading his family. Children need you, women, in the home with them, or at least with them most of the time, right? At least with them most of the time. The children need you. And you should be honored to be there. And if you're not, don't have no kids. That's it. They're not animals where you just want them because they cute. Get you a dog if you just want kids because they cute. But you don't want a responsibility. Because with the dog, you can leave it at home and it'll go to the bathroom in the corner and it'll survive, right? But you can't do that with a baby. You got to be there. So, anyway, I got to end. American Anchor Baby's coming in right now. Make sure you guys tune into his show. You don't want to miss it. American Anchor Baby coming in next. Make sure you guys check him out. I'm gone. I'll be back tomorrow. Until next time, I appreciate the calls and the super chats and all that good stuff. I'll see y'all. Bye.